One Piece chapter 1040. Now, the Law hype just keeps getting crazier and crazier with each coming chapter, because Law again in this chapter did incredible things that we didn't see coming. We thought that that was kind of his last effort attempt in the last chapter, but no, it doesn't stop there. Law does even crazier things in this chapter that has me scratching my head. Kid, on the other hand, did his job. I think people were expecting more from him, which is very understandable, but I think at the end of the day, he did his job in taking down Big Mom. And I'll talk more about that as we move forward, because there is some things that we do need to talk about there. But as usual, please drop a like on this video. I would appreciate it. It definitely helps me push out more content, and subscribe if you're new. Now let's start from the beginning. Now this chapter is composed entirely of Kid and Law versus Big Mom. If anything, this is just the finishing touches before we move on to the main finale of a fight that is Kaido versus Luffy. So things are going to get spicy after this chapter, depending on if we go back to Fukukuju and Araizo, but I don't think if we do go back there it's going to be anything substantial. Probably like 2 or 3 panels worth of content, just like we had in this chapter, but I doubt that Oda would do anything as crazy as that to put a Fukukuju and Raizo battle scene in a Luffy versus Kaido chapter, because that would just get overshadowed that no one would literally talk about it. But it is still one of the battles that is going on right now, and there's a couple of bit of other plot points as well, like CP0, Apu, and Yorichi stuff, but it is definitely in sight now. Kaido versus Luffy is coming back, so I'm glad that we're back on track to the main fight of this arc, and it does look like we're reaching a point of climax as well. Interestingly enough, I don't think Kaido versus Luffy is going to have an ending that we're going to expect, because this was something that was kind of reiterated by Oda time and time again, where he says that he's not going to make this fight where Luffy does a giant punch and it takes out Kaido. It's going to be something much more special to it, which I am looking forward to, because I feel like when it comes to the Yonko, we have to give them a special takedown rather than the usual, because they've been built up, hyped up to no ends. They have to have a special ending, if they do have an ending in this arc, because some people think that Kaido might not even die here, and again, I don't blame them, because we don't know the trajectory of where this is going. Honestly, knowing Oda, it's probably something that you would never think about. But going back to Kid and Law versus Big Mom here, now it starts off with Kid using Damned Punk from the previous chapter, and surprisingly Big Mom resisted the attack, but obviously she was still getting damage from it. And again, it shows the monstrosity of what the Yonkos are, and even while taking the attack, she was then able to use Soul Focus on the beast pirates that were nearby. And I think this part went over a lot of people's heads. While it does look like Big Mom seems to be taking the attack pretty easily, in actuality Big Mom is actually pretty desperate at this point. All she could do at this point was resist the attack, and so she had to do something to sort of break out of it, in which she then used Soul Focus. She mentions that Kid's attack is tickling her, but in reality this was just her trying to instill fear into the people so that she can use Soul Focus on them. So the attack was working, but again, it shows how monstrous the Yonkos are, where even in this predicament they are still resisting, right? And obviously in this case she couldn't take the lifespans of Kid and Law, obviously, because these guys are not afraid of Big Mom. I think that was very obvious from the beginning. We then move on to Law coming in clutch as the best support character in this entire arc, and this was a callback to Curzon's ability, in which Law was able to use his room to silence any noise that comes out of it. This essentially nerfed Big Mom massively, as Big Mom does need to make commands for her homies to react to her, and so by doing this it ultimately stopped that from happening, and this gave Kid the chance to use Damned Punk again, in which this was the final attack that ultimately takes her down for the count. But this only happens because of several reasons. As Big Mom was crashing downwards, she also happens to hit one of the explosives, which caused an explosion, and it eventually ends up with her falling down into the hole that Law made. Granted, she was still conscious when she was falling, but I think the explosion at the end most likely caused her to pass out, but definitely not enough to kill her though. Interestingly enough, the explosion wasn't heard because of Law's ability, as that was still present on Big Mom's body, so therefore the people of the flower capital were unaware that a massive explosion that dwarfed the entirety of the flower capital had taken place. I think it's very obvious that Oda is saving that reveal for later, when the people see Onigashima in the sky, and at that point I think it would be too late, but I think someone comes in and saves them there, which I think that would be Momonosuke. I also want to point out that the hole Law made into the floor was super deep. It's almost as if Law planned this all along, because everything just kind of fits in perfectly in place. Seemed more of a plot thing than anything, I think, unless Law was that crazy of a mastermind. But everything did end up well for them in the end. We'd also get a title box indicating that Kid and Law had won the battle, again, which indicates that Big Mom most likely passed out from this. But again, her story isn't done because it seems like Oda has more plans for her, and this is something that me and a lot of people have been saying for a very long time. Big Mom's story does not end in Wano. I'm not sure how things are going to play out moving forward, whether she goes for Kid, Luffy, or Law once they separate, we don't know, but her storyline may intertwine with that of Luffy since we are going to Elbaf, and we know a lot of Big Mom's history is from Elbaf, especially regarding things relating to Mother Caramel and the Giants and Dorian Brogy. There's a lot of things that could intertwine there with Big Mom re-encountering Luffy, right? So we will most likely see her again. But I will say that I am happy with the conclusion of this fight. I was hoping that we would get to see more from Kid, but I think Oda may have more things in store for him in the future, because we have to remember that Kid doesn't have any backstories. This was the first battle we've seen him in, and it was against a Yonko. So again, even though I was hoping more from Kid, I am still very impressed by what he's done, and I think other people should be as well. His abilities are not as flashy as Law, but it does still put in work. Now Law, on the other hand, has been very exceptional. As expected, he's had a lot of build up in the series, so it makes sense that Oda is showing the true potential of his power here. But overall, this was amazing seeing these two come up like this. I mean, there's only few people in the verse that can 2v1 a Yonko, so again, very impressive. I did also like Big Mom's words here when she was talking about Roger and how Roger kind of ruined her chances of becoming the next Pirate King, and that because of what Roger did, a lot of people came flooding into the new world to have their chance to become something greater, and thus that created more problems for Big Mom to deal with if finding the One Piece wasn't already hard enough. Even though she's a Yonko, the struggle to ascend that level is still something that's very hard to do, even more so now given that there's more individuals that she has to deal with. Definitely some fascinating stuff there with Big Mom. If anything, I'm just more so interested in what direction Oda is going to take her, because her focus now might actually be Law and Kid, because she essentially took on a massive loss here. So we'll see what happens moving forward. Now we finally come to the end of the chapter, and again, this is a brief highlight that we had with Momonosuke and Yamato. And here we come to find out that Momo mentions that Zunisha is getting pretty close to Wano now. He also mentions that Zunisha had committed a crime 800 years ago, which we already knew about, but we get more context here in which he also states that during that time period, she was also Joy Boy's companion. So everything is sort of leading back to Joy Boy at this point, and it might intertwine with what's going on with Luffy versus Kaido, because we do know that Kaido sees something within Luffy, so we'll see where that goes. But everything is culminating into this final fight that we're about to witness, Kaido and Luffy. I think we're gonna have a lot of crazy reveals in this fight in regards to Kaido's backstory, Luffy's power up, the fight in general, Joy Boy. You know, there's a lot of things that's gonna happen here, and I'm excited. Now obviously this fight has a different tone than Big Mom versus Kid and Law, because there's several things that's going on here, so the impact is gonna be much greater. Hoping Oda goes into his bag when it comes to this fight. But overall, this was a very good chapter, very cool finale for a fight. Very impressed with what Kid and Law did here, and I'm looking to see where Oda takes them moving forward. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video. Comment down below what you guys think. Hit the bell if you want to get notified for future content. Subscribe for more One Piece content on this channel. You can follow me on Twitter at FerroSpace. But it is Ferro, and I will see you folks later. Peace. But as usual, please drop a like on this video. Let's go for 500 likes. It definitely helps me push out more content. And subscribe if you're new here.